So today we want to talk about you as an ESTJ looking at your career trajectory, your career path through the lens of 4 different flavors of the ESTJ personality type. So Antonia, explain how we're going to actually look at this. You want to kick it off with the subtype concept?
Yeah, so we are borrowing some of this information from our friend Dr. Dario Nardi. We did a whole podcast episode talking about these subtypes and how they emerged, what the EEG scan wiring information is around them, and a bunch of other good, cool, tech geeky concepts. So my recommendation is if you're interested in doing a deeper dive, please feel free to go listen to that podcast. But this podcast episode is going to be for people who are both new to type. So if you've just discovered you're an ESTJ or you're, not that into the technical jargon of it, we want to make sure that this is accessible. And if you are super into type, then we also want to make sure that we have some of that technical piece in it. But effectively, these 4 different subtypes are ways that our type can manifest through nurture. Now, there's some evidence that indicates, or it seems at this time, that there's some evidence that indicates that our type is pre-wired. They've actually observed this with like extroverted versus introverted tendencies. So we suspect that type is nature, meaning that we're born with our personality type. But our subtype or our flavor or the variant of our type, that seems to be more influenced by nurture. And one of the biggest influences in our subtype is our career choice. And that makes sense, right? What we spend 40 hours a week plus doing is going to have a massive influence on how our brain wiring shows up, because those are the problems we're trying to solve. Those are the, that's the interfacing with the world. It's how we have to show up. And so there are 4 different subtypes or flavors of ESTJs that are both attracted to certain careers, and then if they choose those careers, are influenced by them to alter how that ESTJ personality type shows up.
So just like anything on the internet, if you're doing research about ESTJ careers, you're going to get a lot of general advice, stereotypes, and overgeneralizations. So I did some internet research, by the way, Antonia. I brought a top 10 list in my casual, cursory internet gathering through Google and other means. I have the top 10 list of ESTJ careers according to the internet. You ready for these? So here are the top 10 ESTJ careers according to the internet. Military officer or politician, corporate executive or manager, police officer / detective, lawyer or judge, financial analyst or accountant, engineer or architect, computer systems analyst or network administrator, sales manager or marketing director, human resources manager or recruiter, and then number 10 is teacher or educator. So that's a fairly good list. I think a lot of ESTJs could find themselves on that list, but there's a lot of ESTJs that say, I don't have any one of those careers. I don't feel like I'd want any of that. Am I really not an ESTJ?
Yeah.
Well, maybe just a different flavor ESTJ.
Yeah, there are some careers on that list that some ESTJ subtypes would hate, and that there are some careers that didn't make the list that are actually very much in alignment with certain ESTJ subtypes. So you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so let's talk a little about these. There's 4 flavors or subtypes of ESTJs. There's the dominant, creative, normalizing, and harmonizing subtypes. And as Antonia mentioned earlier, this comes from the work of Dr. Dario Nardi, who actually brought ESTJs into his laboratory, connected them to EEG machines, and watched brain scans and brain patterns show up on EEG brain scans over and over and over again. And so he built these patterns from this. The words are borrowed from socionics inventor Dr. Victor Glenko.
Not inventor. We got in trouble for saying inventor one time. But somebody who has put forth
the work, excuse me.
That's right, has forwarded socionics work and also talked about the subtypes.
Here I'm trying to give somebody credit, and I'm getting in trouble for that too.
Yeah.
It's crazy. If you don't give credit, you get in trouble. If you give credit, you get in trouble. Not trouble, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then also Dr. Helen Fisher's work with neurotransmitters.
Right.
So there's chemical relationships to different chemicals in our brain that each of these have. Testosterone, estrogen, serotonin, and dopamine that we're going to talk about a little bit here. We're not going to go too much into that. I'll just give you a little bit of an index to that.